Welcome to the first episode of the Exactaform podcast, yet to be named. I'm your host today, and today we're drilling into the intricate world of aerospace manufacturing and tooling. Our focus will be on what manufacturers really want from their tooling suppliers and how companies like Exactaform are reshaping the landscape. So let's start with the origin story. So if I can ask you, Jamie, can you share how Exactaform entered the aerospace sector and what are some of your first wins and setbacks?
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Well, Exactaform started producing PCD and CBN inserts, so-called hard materials, so-called advanced materials. And as globalization took hold, the company had to pivot away from flat tooling and got into rotary tooling. So some of the initial work that was done with PCD rotary tooling on composites, namely with the Formula One teams, gave us an early lead on the technology that the aerospace industry had yet to find. So really, as the first projects came through the door, we were ahead of the competition in terms of our innovative designs, and we were able to solve the problems. And this was back in the early 2000s. Obviously, we've come a long way since then, and there's still a long way to go. Um, but yeah, that's where it all started, really.
So you say it started with the motorsport industry, so that's more ahead of the aerospace then.
Phew, more ahead's perhaps a controversial way of saying it. They're certainly able to move faster, or they certainly have a need to move faster. Obviously, there's a lot of safety involved with making aircraft, commercial aircraft, military aircraft, and there's a significant increase on cost for an aircraft over, let's say, a Formula One car. So just the nature of the industry and motorsport being as fast as it is and being, in the late 90s, early 2000s, as wealthy as it was, pre-cost caps, etc., the new materials was all the rage. So yeah, they were the early adopters of the composites in a big way.
And I suppose they're looking for that competitive advantage as well. They're constantly evolving, aren't they?
Money wasn't an object. It was all about weight ratios, etc. So yeah.
So just want to talk about the cultural shift within Exactaform. Perhaps you could share the customer expectations and how they've reshaped internal processes, particularly in terms of speed, cost, and communication.
In the early days, with any customer, it's all about solving the immediate problems they have. When they have a spindle waiting to machine a part and they have a challenge, whether that's a surface finish challenge or a hole challenge or whatever it may be they're facing, it's all about getting that innovative solution in as quick as possible with as much support as possible to get the machine up and running and get the product moving. Clearly, as projects develop, certainly within aerospace, because those projects span decades, the focus inevitably shifts once the problems are solved onto the commercials. And really, in the early days for Exactaform, it was all about go, get the product onto the spindle, make sure the hole is a good hole or the component is a good fit for tolerance. As those projects grow and as the expectation on Exactaform grows, Exactaform has expanded its operations, grown its workforce, and culturally it's been massive to go from a really small niche family-run agile business of 10-15 people, bringing in teams and building out the infrastructure, which Martin's obviously been a massive part of over 15 years, going from one man in control of a certain project or a certain account to having to, I suppose, spread some of that responsibility throughout, but maintain a superior level of service.
Well, like you say, with regards to the level of service, it's always been a key point for certainly some of the larger OEMs, in the sense that they rely on from a even down to a stock control, but even solution based, working in partnership with them. It's what they call the long game. It's not actually a quick fix. It's always got to have rigorous testing. You're working alongside their partners, some of the universities as well. So the tooling that we've developed with the customer have all been part of a strategic partnership to ensure that the product is foolproof. It can repeatability is a key element of it, and obviously the cost per part is one of the most important elements. They don't look at just the cost per tool, like Jamie's touched on, is the fact that it is in doubt. It's important to get the quality right, well, it's quality, cost, and delivery. But the cost is not down to the cost of the tool; it's the cost per the hole or cost per meter. So therefore, they work on that regime in order to ensure that they get repeatability, and that's critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, working across different industries, automotive, motorsport, and aerospace, it's remarkable how the expectation of the customer changes. And cost is always a consideration, doesn't matter what industry or what business you're in, but there are different ways to approach that challenge. Reducing the cost of the item you buy from Exactaform, the cutting tool, is often a false economy. So we look to like Martin just said there, we look to work with the customer in driving down their real costs, which are often their machine time or material wastage or whatever that may be. And we target what the customer needs. So our solution, our cutting tools don't come off the shelf as a one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
They're uniquely tailored to the circumstance, or they can be uniquely tailored to the circumstance that the customer presents us with. And each customer need varies ever so slightly. We don't often go in and say, here is the cheapest cutting tool. Even if that's what the customer's asking for, we help really drill down into where the value can be found for that customer. And it's often tenfold more value, more cost control that can be found from looking into processes, whether that's optimizing speeds and feeds or whatever that may be, as opposed to looking at the cost of the cutter. The cost of the cutter has always got to be controlled. Of course it has. From a cultural perspective, to go from being a small team of 12 to a team of 100, it's meant that we're able to, our ethos at Exactaform is to retain that flexibility and that agility, so the customer still feels like they're the most important person in the world, no matter who the customer is. But the support that goes with our cutting tools, with our products, whether that is stock control, whether that is reporting, whether that is identifying areas of challenge on their own shop floor that they may not have seen themselves, and this is all an addition to our service. This is all free of charge, an expectation that we put on ourselves that often the customers don't even realise they would benefit from.
Yeah, completely agree. It's the above and beyond approach, in the sense of where the customer feels that they're the most important in all of this, which they are. And like you're saying, it's all down to the service as well. And the support, the technical support on site is 24/7 in the majority of our customers, in the sense that, if there is a problem, we address it and we deal with it in a very timely manner. That's very important in aerospace, because downtime is very expensive for the aircraft industry. And so it can be tens of thousands of pounds, where if you have what they call an AOG, an aircraft on the ground, it's big business, in the sense that they need to get that resolved. And that's where we play a major part, because we not only have the technical solution, we have the ability to then solve their issues, but also deliver it in a timely manner that suits their needs and keeps the costs down to a minimum.
So you're actually not just producing a product; it's a service that backs that product up.
It's absolutely that's exactly what it is. It's all about the service. It's having that 24/7 support that can deal with technical issues, stock issues. It can deal with cost amortization. It can deal with the majority of things. Even when they've got an application which is a maintenance, repair, and overhaul, where they have an issue that they need to have a look at a particular problem, a repair or a concession. Therefore, that's where we step in and we stand up against the majority of cutting tool manufacturers. We can then provide the solution, but again, have the support network to underpin it, to ensure that they get the aircraft back in the air, effectively.
Would you consider that a USP? Is that something that's kind of standard across the industry, or is that something unique to yourselves?
It's a really good question. It's something that the industry claims as a standard. Everybody says that they're an engineering solutions provider because it's the buzzword of the time. But how you implement that and how that actually comes to the forefront from the customer perspective often falls long short of the mark. One of the ways that we ensure that we are delivering that value, we have a guarantee. And our guarantee is that any cutting tool that we supply, or any solution that we will supply, unless it provides the value that we've agreed up front, then it won't be charged for. So we're actually putting our money where our mouth is. And if we don't apply all of those engineering services, logistical services, whatever the services are at the time, if we don't apply them in the right way, in the right manner, with vigor, then actually it's going to cost us money. That's the way we put our money where our mouth is, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that's how it's different to the rest of the industry.
Do you want to give an example, perhaps, of how the way you work with your clients has set you apart and has really been a successful sort of partnership with a client?
Exactaform has been very fortunate over the last decade or so to experience quite rapid growth. Luck is a factor for everybody, but really it's down to the hard work of the team, of course. But either way, we've experienced rapid growth. And what has become very clear to us is that when we were a 10-person company, we had some core strengths over some of the bigger companies, and that was the agility, the flexibility, the desire and will to be bigger and better, and competing against yourself all the time, trying to improve your service. As we grew, we started to enjoy some of the benefits that weren't available to us as a 10-person company, but were to the larger competitors, such as tech, such as financial resource, such as employee experience and skills, and we're able to attract better staff. And it came very clear to us that if we weren't careful, we would end up going the same way as the larger companies inevitably do, that are shareholder driven, whereby you need to have process and control, but that creates this bureaucratic environment which ultimately slows you down. So the small companies have these fantastic advantages. These great big companies have these fantastic advantages and strengths, and we sit at completely different ends of the market, supplying a completely different style of service and product. So Exactaform tries to capture that piece in the middle. What if we could take the positives of the small company, the agility, the flexibility, the will, the drive, and the resources and technology and experience of the larger company, and find that middle gap, that sweet spot? Over the years, we found that sweet spot moves from left to right, and it's constantly needing review. We're constantly challenging the status quo because we have a problem. We put a process in to fix that problem. We become too process driven, so we drop it off again, and we're going around in this cycle in the center. So it's that constant need for urgency, constantly putting that customer in the very, very center of whatever we do, and also challenging the status quo. It's actually one of our core values. So life at Exactaform is when we're interviewing for a new role, people will come and say, well, is this a stable job? No, this is not a stable job. This is a secure job, but it's not a stable job because it's never good enough. We're always innovating. We're always pushing and driving. So that sweet spot concept isn't very conducive from a commercial perspective. If we were shareholder driven, if we were here to provide shareholder funds, it's expensive, it's costly. But we're not. We're here to grow this business. It's a legacy, it's a dynastical business, and we know the value that we add outstrips in favor of the customer 10 to 1 over what they've experienced before. That's how we've experienced that rapid growth over the 10 years. So that's really closely protected at Exactaform, that concept, and the people that work there believe in that and they love that, despite the challenges it brings. Interested in your view, Martin?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think from my point of view is that with some of it is a lot of the customer feedback's very positive in the sense that we are the go-to company for that service, and they admire the fact that we can react quickly, but we react quickly, but in a positive manner, in the sense that we can deliver a product to them that they know and they can trust. The trust is the big thing. Is we've now become a trusted strategic partner to the majority of our customer base, and they know that we're the go-to business. We do what we say we're going to do. We don't just talk about it. That's one of our USPs in every way. Is that if we say we're going to do it, we do it and we deliver. The other thing is the fact that, like James says, no shareholders. We do become very agile when we need to. We turn it on and we turn it off because we know what at what cost it is to the customer. So it's really important that those values are continued through the business. They drive us, and we live by them. We breathe them, and the culture is really important within the business because that's what makes us do what we do, and that's how we do it. And we deliver every time we we say we're going to do it. We do it. It's And the good thing is, it's having those relationships with our customers. It's having that sometimes the one-to-one that they need. They know that they can come to us, and again, when there is R&D work being carried out, a lot of the big corporations, they have to have their set lead times in order to get a tool to the spindle in order to get the test conducted. We actually offer an R&D phase one, so we can bring the customer in and we can develop the tool as they're there. They're live. They're working with us on the spindle. We can take the results, pull it back. We can take wear results. We can then adjust we gauge all the thrust forces when we're doing certain things, and we can actually make sure that they're comfortable with what they see before they even touch any of their machines. They're carrying on producing what they're doing, but they're also developing tools in the background with the use of what we have to offer. It's a very, very, I think that's a very unique thing that we have there.
It's an interesting thing you're saying, that it's you actually have a client come and sit with you while you're involved in the process.
Yep.
We do a similar thing in our industry, where someone will come and sit with you and they'll tweak it and twist it, and it's so, it goes back to that agile thing again. It's much quicker to do it that way.
Exactly.
And they know what they're getting, saying the backward and forward.
They're experiencing it. It's not just a document that states that it's been done. It's a document they've been present and been part of. This is where the collaboration comes in. It becomes that you do become a partner rather than selling a tool or a product. You're selling the solution, but you're making sure that they've been on the journey with you from start to finish. So they know as much detail as what we know, and therefore they have the confidence in the product moving forward. Because these projects last years, they last decades, and it's important that they get it right. And once they get it right, they know they're confident that can move forward and continue throughout the life of the project.
So you've basically gone from being a good tooling company to a trusted partner.
Exactly. That's exactly where we are. I mean, like I say, customer feedback, even down to some of the, we've even gone down the awards route where we've actually been identified for being effectively a strategic partner and for our development, our work, just our innovation alone has been shared, and we've been recognised and effectively been accredited for some of the things we've done in the past. And it's been over many years that with the service we offer that they see us as that. We are the go-to as I see it anyway. And that was part of when I joined Exactaform somewhat 15 years ago. I started in the very early days when Jamie said there was like 8-10 people, and I've watched the growth, and I've never ever worked for a company that has been so dynamic in their investment, the level of investment, and it's always customer focused. Everything's customer led. They're very people focused, but the customer's the one that they're looking at.
It's interesting. I wanted to ask how customer expectations have reshaped internal processes. Could you give me some background on that, perhaps?
Yeah, there's been lots of changes over the years, and it's all part of improvements and installing systems and processes in order to enable us to be, as Jamie touched on, the sweet spot, to make sure we have the agility, but we also have the control at the same time, because that's really important, because you can't lose focus. So quality is always king. So therefore, those changes over many years have been really, really important. So we've adapted to we've been audited as well in order to make sure that we're compliant, because there's a lot of compliance involved around the type of tooling we make, especially in the composites world, and those sort of things are really important to not only ourselves but to the customer. But the level of investment is another thing as well that at Exactaform that has been made in order to keep us effectively ahead of the game, I would say. So, in some instances, we've been the first of this particular machine in the UK or this particular technology, and therefore, if it adds value, that's when we look into it. And if it adds value, not to Exactaform but to the customer.
Yeah.
So
it's a function of size and scale. So to go from a very small business with a small number of people, all of which have their finger on the pulse, to then take on a much larger volume of work, you have to install processes and systems, taking care not to make them too fatty and heavy, but actually assist in the value driven to the customer. But what it has done, it's made us really look internal as well, because we've had hiccups. Scaling the business has not come without challenge, as it never can come without challenge. But we go from 1 or 2 people, finger on the pulse, right the way through to teams, handling large masses of information, data, volume, whatever you want to talk about, and And then all of a sudden you realize that it's not just an operational challenge that you're facing. It's not just putting more people in more teams doing the same thing over and over again, because not everybody feels the same way. Not everybody sees the industry, the company in the same way. So we had to start looking culturally as well. And that's where our core business focus, which we don't talk about very much publicly outside the company, but it's driving customer value. And we have a set of KPIs that links all of the different teams and departments within Exactaform back together to focus on that customer. And what we do from a commercial perspective, obviously our product has to drive value to the customer, but it also has to make us money. Of course it does. That's the way the world works. But our focus isn't on the sale. Our focus isn't on the value to Exactaform. Our focus is on driving the value to the customer. And we expect that partnership, through a fantastically engaged culture and fantastically engaged teams of people able to manage massive volumes, then provides us with that return. If it's not within the 6 months that we start working with that customer, that's not our interest. We're looking for 20-year relationships here that will drive continuous growth to Exactaform. So yeah, culturally is the biggest shift that we've seen for sure.
So I'd like to discuss the strategic risk and reward. Can you elaborate on the decision-making process behind investing in the aerospace specific tooling and service models?
Yeah, it's a natural progression. Advanced tooling, which is the core product of Exactaform, which is PCD, diamond tipped, the natural progression where the volume of composite machining was happening in the early 2000s and more so each year. It's a growing industry globally. It naturally lended itself to our core product. Aerospace was the quickest growing. Aerospace is the quickest growing market for composite tooling or PCD tooling. It's not the only market we focus on, and that's primarily due to the barriers to entry and the challenges and the risks, as you've asked in the question, because getting into an aerospace company, when you're making an aircraft that holds 350 people, there's obviously quite a lot of process, quite a lot of R&D and qualification that you need to go through. It can take years. So the cost that goes into trying to work with certainly an OEM or a large aerospace manufacturer, it's all investment up front from Exactaform's perspective. Obviously, no risk from the manufacturer's perspective. Due to the size of these opportunities, there were also a lot of competition. But the beauty of it is once you're in and you've proven your value and you've been qualified, those partnerships have a chance to really flourish and grow over decades. So the risk up front comes with lots of reward from a company perspective. At the same time, we have to hold ourselves to extraordinary high standards because it's compliance and it's people's lives. Quite frankly, it doesn't come into our mindset a huge amount because of the stringent controls we have on our own product quality and our own standards. So you need to have a spread of portfolio, I suppose, of industry. So the aerospace, the automotive, the medical, and the motorsport are our 4 primary markets. But really, the aerospace market is one where we're leading in terms of our technology. So it gives us the greatest opportunity. Repeating myself again here, but it gives us the greatest opportunity to really add that value and show how much support that the aerospace company, the customer, could get from us, could take from us.
My take on that is, it's all, like I say, it's all about the investment. It's very project led as well, in the sense that there's, as we've touched on previously, it's called the long game. So the projects we're working on today, we may not see the tooling on a production line for a decade, and that's how it works within the industry. We find a lot of that. But what we offer, like you're saying, as regarding a company, is the sense that we have a team of engineers that support that and work alongside that project, again, from the point till we get to the spindle and get it proved out. But like you say, today's innovation will be used on tomorrow's aircraft, and that's one thing that we know for sure. That's why we're part of a lot of some of the big, especially in the fighter jet, the FCAS and the GCAP arena. Looking at the 6th gen fighter jet, we're working alongside some of the big companies in order to ensure that we can work with these advanced materials and obviously with the advanced solutions, because as we say, the challenges come up with the materials. Nobody thinks about machining the materials. They're just fit for purpose as far as the aircraft is concerned. Nobody thinks about the machining of it, and that's where we step up, and we sort of certainly are in line with what we need to do. Because, like I say, there's lots of different challenges out there now regarding, stack materials, even down to the CFRP. Every CFRP that gets released into the industry always is effectively unique to an aircraft. So the repeatability and the machinability of it changes, and that's where we step in.
So what specific challenges are you solving, particularly concerning the CFRP and other materials?
The challenges we're up against is we can be specific with, down to the layup and obviously the applying the correct solution with the correct geometries and things like that on the tool. In order to adapt that, you need to understand how the material reacts when it's being machined. There's thermal, is it wet, is it dry? There's lots of different things that have to be considered when doing these trials. So therefore, like I say, every time it's presented to us, we actually treat it as a new material. You try something, it doesn't work, you try again, but you take those learnings and you apply them to the next trial, and you keep going. And that's where we have over 2 decades of innovation and 2 decades of data that we can support on that application. So that's where again, there's some of the challenges you're facing. It's some of the exotic stacks that are expected now. They're putting materials together, like Inconels and aluminium and CFRP sandwich applications where you've got the CFRP alley and CFRP. So again, they all pose different challenges in machining, in the world of machining.
So what are customers overlooking when it comes to behind the scenes work? What should they know?
I think with the R&D side of it, that's where they rely on the likes of ourselves to work with them and shared practice. So they'll bring knowledge to the table, but then again, our experience and our knowledge will then be shared. And like I said, it's brainstorming and going through all the scenarios and actually then applying them and taking the data, looking at it collectively again as a collaboration, and making sure that you apply the right rule set in order to make sure that you eradicate those challenges.
I remember one of those conversations that we all had when we went to university. You're young and arrogant, and we're going to change the world. And I remember a friend of mine saying to me, I don't understand what the business is. Why are you making drills for aerospace? Surely they just make their own drills. It's easy. I said, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to let you know. I don't really get it. And then when you actually get into the under the skin of a cutting tool manufacturer, we are so often the last thought in a customer's mindset. They buy the big machine, they get the tooling and the fixturing and all this sort of stuff, and the last thing to think of is the cutting tool. It's such a wrong way about it.
I'll just comment on this. It's always the case in every industry you go to that you're talking about multi-million-pound machines and fixtures, and when there is a point of failure, the single point of failure from a natural reaction is to go for what's on the end, the spindle, and that's normally the drill, which is always on the drill or the milling tool. It's always going to be probably the slightly cheaper side of it as well. But that's not all. That's not what it's all about. Collectively, it's about having everything, all things being equal, solid fixtures, the setup, and obviously those can cause different problems. If you've got an application where you're not stable on a fixture, you've got a lot of resonance. The drill could be the best drill in the world.
That's a really good point. That's why we had to expand our services, wasn't it? I suppose that was one of the drivers. We were getting called in to look at a cutting tool, and there's 20 larger variables that the customer's not able to foresee. So we had to become a broader expert in the machining processes to be able to solve those problems.
In the Industry 4.0 world, everything's being automated now. A lot of the rigid machining applications are now being phased out, and we're going into robotics. And in the robotics world, it's a robotic end effector that's drilling, and then a robot that's holding it. They're not stable, so therefore the drill needs to meet the demands of what is being offered to it.
When do we know to say no, Martin? When is there a challenge too big for us?
Do you know what? I don't think I've ever come across the fact that we say no. I think that you need to rule out or eradicate. I mean, of course, you're going to have trials that fail, but I think at one point there was a level of investment that the company agreed to, and that was where we have the word. We're investing in a robot is not something that you you'd possibly do to set up an R&D facility. A lot of the large universities will study these things, but therefore we sort of bridge that gap using ADUs as well to see what the difference is, because obviously it's not just about the cutting tool, it's what is the cutting tool, what's the noise around the tool when it's drilling, when it's milling, what's happening. We need to understand that, and getting into the detail and delving into all that noise and that resonance and the thrust readings you're getting back can then give you pointers, and they're actually triggers to adjust certain geometries to ensure that you can eliminate them. Edge preparation, certain coatings, they're all factors that make the cutting tool unique, and that's important that we apply them.
I thought something that was interesting, what Martin said there, is the impact that an employee of Exactaform may have could span decades in an aerospace company. I find that really incredible. There's a bit of a blinding flash of the obvious to me there, that we've perhaps missed. The work that you've done, Martin, over the last 10, 15 years will carry on long after your time at Exactaform is finished. That's quite empowering.
I think it's like when we are currently working on future combat aircraft programs now with a lot of the big companies, and we're not saying we're the only ones working on it. There's a lot of companies that are working with these, but it's all development, and it's stuff that you don't see tomorrow. It's not the next day, it's years. It's going to be 2035 before that particular aircraft, whatever they call it, it will be a production aircraft. But it's important that you're doing the work today to secure the business moving forward. And it's, we're working on the current largest combat aircraft program in the world as it stands, and that its lifespan is 2035, and then you've got the service life of that going on for decades beyond that. So the tooling that's been engineered and the solutions that have been engineered and work, in collaboration with the companies we're working with, enables us to secure that tooling, whatever scale it may be, going forward into probably when Jamie's going to retire. And then beyond that, with the 6th gen, you're talking 50, 60 years ahead of the game.
So how does that work? If you're building an aircraft that's going to be launched 10 years down the line, by the time that thing's in the air,
old technology.
The processes must be all out of date. The materials must be out of date. It's not actually cutting edge. It was cutting edge
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Again, that's a great question. I mean, like you're saying, just one of the programs we're working on, those materials are 2 decades, 3 decades old, but the material is a very difficult material to machine. And there's not a great deal of cutting tool manufacturers out there that can supply a solution for some of the applications. However, again, it's still 30 years aged. Again, it will start from today. Today's material will be out of date when they bring it into manufacture. But the development, it's not just about we're talking about airframe, but the technologies will change as it evolves.
Yeah.
So from day one, if you're putting in a 20-watt light bulb, you may be putting an LED bulb in 20 years. Those sort of things will change. It's just the actual airframe is where we're specifically we're being targeted. That's where we're actually we're working on the airframe.
Yeah. The knowledge that we have today is for the next aircraft that comes out in 20 years. The aircraft we're making today was 20 years designed 20 years ago.
But you're still using technologies from there. But then you're talking about the Eurofighter. I mean, I'm going to specifically mention that. Then you're talking like 30, 40 years back, but they're still developing that. They're still putting advanced technology. They're using some technology they're using in a certain model to apply that onto Eurofighter, to take that to the more advanced stage of its life. So, the 6th gen aspect of it means it's semi-autonomous. That's where they're going before we know it, we'll be working on the 7th gen when the 6th gen is being produced.
If you think about when you first watched Top Gun, I know you were only a young nipper when it came out, but but the reality is that's a dogfighting world.
Yeah.
But the Eurofighter came out 10, 15 years after Top Gun, sorry. We're no longer dogfighting. We're shooting missiles and sending drones up over, but we're still developing that aircraft.
Yeah.
It's such a fascinating
well, I assume it's going to go
challenge.
pilotless relatively soon.
That's
the technology will.
I think that's the aim for the 6th gen is semi-autonomous, so it will be piloted, but it can be unpiloted. that's the semi-autonomous world. So it can be, navigated as a drone as effectively when it's...
Because the fleshy bit inside the cockpit is the weak link. isn't it?
Yeah,
Ultimately,
always.
you're pulling a certain amount of G's and they black out and what have you.
Yeah.
You take that out of the equation and all of a sudden you've got a far more agile aircraft, I suppose.
And the risk is significantly reduced as well
Well,
from the loss of life.
But the rate of change is so slow. We've got technology that we've developed, which was advanced for us 10 years ago, that still hasn't been incorporated into the industry. Which is ever so frustrating for us. Of course, that's not our prerogative to instruct. Our prerogative is to offer the solution and work with the manufacturers to decide if it's fit for purpose or not. But generally, engineering resource, engineering skill set in this country isn't in abundance. We all know that. So where do they focus their resource? On yesterday's project, which is working, could be improved, but it's working, or tomorrow's project, which still needs to be developed.
It's a bit like the Formula One aspect again, isn't it? Do you put all your attention into this year's car, or do you abandon it because it's not working and invest in next year?
Yeah, it's a good analogy, Good analogy on a much smaller scale, because we're talking over 10, 20 years rather than over a year, but it's exactly the same thing.
But it's like the world of automation. It's like you're saying with all these, where they're adapting to automating the process, they're still using the big rigid machines that are solid fixtures, and they're going away from that. So the tooling aspect is changing. So that's where we're ahead of the game. We have to work with all the coatings, the complex geometries that need to be adapted in order to ensure that it can cope with the amount of noise that these things make.
So what advances? So you're talking about the machine that holds the tool.
Yeah.
How often does that change, or is that kind of relatively stable? And ultimately, because if they change, you have to adapt to the changes.
It's evolving all the time. There's certain within the industry, they're constantly looking at new programs. I mean, you've got some of the commercials like the Wing of Tomorrow program. They were looking at these all the time. There's always innovation within the industry. It's what they call the name is the long game. It's a long game to get, but you need to be on developing products or tooling that can cope with whatever these advanced approaches are. And that's where we still play a very, very major pinnacle point in making sure we've got the agility to do that as well. And I think from my point of view as well is the fact that the level of investment, not just in manufacturing cutting tools, but actually in enhancing cutting tools. And you're only as good as what you can measure, because that's a really important aspect of it, the quality. So the level of technology that goes into our quality and our inspection facility is huge. And it's even gone into the world where a lot of cutting tool manufacturers don't have that. And that's going into real microscopic detail, just down to edge preparation and surface finishing. They really carry a major point, and they're very important on how the tool performs. So there's lots of factors. The list is endless. Commercial dry and defense is wet. There's two different applications there. It's night and day. And how do you adapt or come up with a tool that works within both of those environments? And it's really important that we have the technology that we can just apply a surface finish or an edge preparation, i.e. for a specific coating or just for an evacuation of swarf in a metallic world. They're so important to making the tool be good or bad.
So excuse my ignorance, but are there materials out there that you can't use your product on? Is it going to get to a point where they create something or they discover something that is so goddamn hard you can't cut it?
The way I look at that, Terry, is we've been making drills and end mills for 150 odd years, right from back in the day where a bloke would do it by hand, and we're now into CNC, looking at the infinitesimal small detail, the edge prep, the micron geometry, the microcrack, whatever it may be. And they're constantly bringing out materials that we don't have a tool for. Not just us, but the industry. So they're constantly bringing out new materials, which is a current, there is no solution. So we have to go ahead and develop that solution for that specific material.
It sounds like quite a long-term vision there. What are some of the 5 to 10 year bets that Exactaform has made to build credibility in the industry?
Oh, that's a tricky question.
I would say it's the level of investment. In the sense of, investing in future-proofing the business. I mean, the building alone was partly one of the biggest investments that Exactaform had made in order to from a capacity perspective. It wasn't just purely made for the Exactaform now, it was the Exactaform going forward. So that's classified as future proofing and as the long term journey. With having the extra space to expand and ensure that you're keeping up to speed with, it's not just getting onto the projects, it's actually the scalability of being on those projects. So the build rates increase, and as the build rates increase, the demand increases. So we have to have the capacity in order to sustain that and make sure that we can see the entire project through from the beginning to the end, and that plays a vital point. The other thing is, like Jamie touched on, in the sense of investment, is when all the development work is carried out, it's a 5-year plan, 5 to 10-year plan to get the tool to the spindle and basically signed off and approved. So for a project that lasts sort of 20-25 years, you're sort of already into a third of that time once you have the approval and you start to move forward. So to develop further, by the time the development has taken place, the project will be ending. So it is looking at future projects rather than looking at the existing ones in order to make sure you're innovating and moving forward. So once you've taken that time and you've become a partner, a strategic partner, and showed, you've proven your credibility to support that, you'll see that through, and then obviously get on to the next project.
Yeah, and excuse the pun, but staying at the cutting edge, staying at the forefront of technology from our manufacturing perspective means we can constantly innovate our products for our customers as well. So we've got to be developing our own systems and processes for scale, but we've also got to keep on developing that technology, predicting what the next generation of cutters are going to be like for the next generation of materials, the next generation of aircraft. Yeah, it's constantly
I think you're
progressing.
right. I think the other thing is that they're saying it's not about manufacturing the tools, it's also about actually having the capability and the technology in order to measure. As the saying goes, what you can't measure, you can't manage, but you're only as good as what your inspection is in the sense of the quality. So if, as technology or, as the products innovate, there's lots of different things, taking like edge preparation, there's coatings, surface finishing, and it's okay having the machinery to adapt that to your tooling, but you have to be able to measure it in order to prove out that it is. And then once you can measure it, obviously you can control it as well. And that's what obviously the aerospace, the industry it actually thrives at, it needs that. So from that point of view, it's probably one of the important things is that level of investment in the technology, not only from manufacturing, but from the measurement.
It's funny to think, I'm just looking at Martin and listening to Martin talk. Martin's invested his entire life in an industry making a product that most people in the world don't even give a consideration to, cutting tools. I'm looking at your face, Terry, and impressed that you're managing to listen to us talk about something that clearly we're very passionate about. It's such a misunderstood industry. It's such a perceived small part of the industry, but nobody can make anything without cutting tools, and nobody can make anything well unless it's commercially viable. It all marries together, and you have to have the right cutting tool, the right support, the right knowledge and know-how. There are so many variables and so many changes. How do you take all of that and try and compete and keep up with an innovative, changing industry, a growing industry, transforming traditional aircraft over spans of decades into aircraft that are sustainable, green, fit for the future, modern methods, modern technology? It's incredibly exciting from an engineering perspective to be part of. And that curve's only speeding up. We're getting quicker. We're getting more innovative as a engineering industry. Wow, what a time to be in it. Bringing in technology, bringing in AI, bringing in robotics. Nobody knows where it's going to go. And everything, referring back to something you said earlier about risk and investment, all of this has to be done up front. All of it is a gamble. Nobody knows anything. Being an engineer, you're creating from scratch, much like your industry, your graphics, you start with a blank page. Engineering is very much the same. It's just in 3D.
Yeah.
So all of the risk is you put your neck out there and you try something and you may fail, and that's okay. That's a learning. You go again, you go again. It's just the scale of that failure that we're talking about, whether that application is correct for robots or whether that cutting tool was the right approach or whether that methodology for moving that tool around the component is the right direction or the wrong direction. It's so granular, yet so macro at the same time.
Is it you mentioned AI a second ago?
I thought you might pick up on that.
Yeah, well, it's the buzzword, isn't it? So
Yeah.
how's that how you involving
Yeah.
AI in your business? Be curious to know that.
So we are the oldest and slowest industry, and at the same time, the newest and fastest changing industry at the exact same time. It's just different parts of our industry that find themselves in either end of that scale. So on the slower end of the scale, we have people still using massive, heavy duty tooling to rip away massive amounts of material at quite a slow pace. And then we've moved to a real forward way, progressional way of machining, fast speeds,
High feed, high
high
speed.
feed, high speed. Thank you. Yeah. High feed, high speed takes much smaller cutters, but uses really clever, knowledgeable people to plot the path around a component for the optimum cycle time and cost balance, I suppose. AI will one day replace that intelligent, knowledgeable human in creating that path. Yeah, AI will also replace the decision of which tool to use. How far in the future that is, none of us can tell. But I think for us, having an awareness of what the opportunity is for AI to make an impact in our industry, having one eye on the future, and considering how our cutters may fit within that new picture, that new landscape that's coming, is important. We are more commonly asked for, let's take a step down from AI. AI is the buzzword, as you say, but intelligent tooling is our buzzword. That's what everybody's asking for. So rather than taking a drill off the shelf and shoving it in a machine and treating it as that drill, we're now seeing it as a core part of our process in machining and our customers' machining, and they want more data, more information. These are now the make or break to success or failure of a effective machining process. I know that Martin's done quite a bit of work in terms of putting RFID chips, QR codes. These sound old-fashioned, but actually applied in the right way, they're quite powerful still. We don't just need to jump to the next new thing all the time. Having tiny, tiny sensors at the cutting edge of a cutting tool. Hang on, a minute ago we were talking about how this is an old-fashioned industry. We've been making drills for 150 years, and now we want to know what the exact cutting condition at the edge is. It's such an interesting... like I say, that scale from slow, antiquated industry that takes a long time to move and shift because it's a big machine, right the way through to those really innovative ideas that one day will come in. But is one day tomorrow, or is it 10 years? And that's what we're up against.
I think also to add to that is the fact that with that sort of technology as well, it's for tool tracking as well, to ensure that again, going back to tool optimization and getting the value for money from a customer point of view, you can track the life of the tool to ensure that it is as you've quoted, in the sense that you'll get 1 to 20 life ratio. The enabling of QR codes, data matrix codes, RFID chips, all gives you that data that you can work with to ensure that they have evidence that that's what they're getting, rather than it just be, a statement. It sort of supports that, and that's again, that's a game changer. I mean, and not to forget, on all of this journey, we're on the the sustainability, the carbon footprint. We're working with that alongside that. So on the the 2050 net zero, we're on that journey.
Martin, you just prompted me as well. Some of the stuff we're talking about here, QR codes, RFID chips, these have been around for 20 years. They've been in our industry for 20 years. So what makes them new? What makes them new is what we do with that information, what we do with that product as well. This loops back to something you were asking us about earlier, Terry, on the cultural change and the shifts within the business. The desire to give value for free back to that customer, to handle their data, to actually make decisions that could impact our sales, which goes against all of the textbooks of business. We're going to do something that's going to make our customers spend less and save money, or be more efficient with what they've got, so they need less. So that's a real mindset challenge to go from. We're fortunate that we don't need to have to worry about our shareholders taking a dividend. Family-owned business, everything gets reinvested, so that gives us that peace of mind that what we're here for is actually customer value. When we're talking about innovating, it's a double-edged sword from a cutting tool perspective, because we're going to make our customers more productive, spend less, need less, What are we doing that for? If you're in there for a quick buck to get in, sell your product and get back out again, our philosophy, our mentality is completely wrong. But if you're going to span a relationship over 20 years, who cares what they spend? Who cares what they need? What matters is we stay there and we stay developing, we stay at the forefront of this. We're not going to change the world one drill at a time, as much as we like to tell ourselves we will. But our customers are changing the world. And if we can help them do that quicker and faster, more efficiently, yeah, that gives us a buzz. We're keen to do that.
It's sort of the fairy liquid approach, isn't it? It lasts
Twice as
10
much.
times
Yeah.
longer or whatever. And you think, well, that's kind of counterintuitive
Yeah.
because they're not going to spend,
Yeah,
they're not
yeah.
going to go and buy another bottle of fairy liquid for 10 times the length.
Yeah.
But if you get them on board and they're continually buying fairy liquid because
That's
of that USP,
That's it.
then and obviously more people will go, well, that's the one to buy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you might not be making the same amount of revenue off one customer, but when everybody else goes, well, that's where I want to be, it comes from that sort of.
But from my take on it, again, the fact is the offering that from some of our customers, we actually drive the data back into their business, so we do prove out the value that we're actually returning.
Yeah, it's
on their
almost like a
investment.
guarantee, isn't it?
And it's part of the SLA. When you get onto these big contracts, there is driving costs are really important. So but that naturally comes to us because that's what we do, and that's what we've always done. In
That's
the
what the
sense
product
of,
does as
it
well.
does again.
Yeah.
So we prove it out. So we supply the data, and we come back with the results to prove out that's what's happening. On top of that, with the innovation, because innovation also drives value back, and it also drives costs down. Because obviously it's all driven on a cost per part basis, as opposed to it being, again, selling a drill or an end mill or something like that. It's not about that.
It makes me think about this conversation is making me think about the industry on a bigger scale. That the general understanding when you go to a round table event on the future of aerospace, for instance, you'll have the top CEOs from the top companies in the room talking about what tomorrow's world looks like. But they're also sat there fully acknowledging that the giant oil tanker machines that they're in control of are unlikely to be the ones to bring this to the forefront, and it requires SMEs, agile companies, innovative companies to commercialize these ideas or little parts of these ideas to then come together, and in 1, 5, 10 years time that becomes a commercialized opportunity for then these big companies to then take forward, and that's how our part in this, that's our role in changing the world. It's that innovative, small, fast-paced, agile, willing, open to risk because our picture is more macro, and providing we're constantly focusing on being better ourselves and innovating for tomorrow, even in some cases not knowing what tomorrow is, that readies us for what happens. We're already in a forward position. Yeah. But who the hell knows what tomorrow's world is? It's engineering by definition. We don't know what the challenge is. We don't know what the solution is yet. It's such an exciting place to be.
It's very exciting, like you say. It's
drills. Whoever said drills are exciting, Martin?
Exactly. No 2 days are the same. They're like the same drills. A drill is a drill. You talk to anybody and they say a drill, they refer going to a DIY store and buying a drill, which is it's a fair comment, but they don't fully understand.
And I have to say, they're blooming expensive. I went to B&Q a few months ago to buy a specific drill bit because I needed to go through a tile. I couldn't believe how expensive it was.
Yeah. You probably picked a diamond drill, but
possibly carbide. Yeah.
You got to think all you're trying to do is get a 6 mil hole in the wall so you can have your toilet roll hanging off it. We're trying to machine
we're working to some
9 microns.
Yeah, I know. It's like
yeah.
I mean, like I say, even just touching on with some of the innovation that we've done over the years is, we talk about specific drilling applications, but we do. This is something we sort of pride ourselves on, is taking your multiple applications and make them into one shot. It's one of our big our big successes over the years that we've been working within the aerospace is coming up with the one shot solutions, because they're the important ones, because that's the one where you're taking a drill and a reamer and a countersink, for instance, for the rivets. You're doing that all in one shot. It eliminates a lot of quality issues, but it also adds value in time. So
is it, when you're saying that, just is that one cutting tool that does all three?
Yeah. So what you'd normally get, so you'd have a drill and you'd have a pre-reamed hole, then you go in with a reamer, and then you'd come in manually with a countersink, a piloted countersink to create the hole. Where the solutions that we provide is combining all three of those tools together and going in and taking it in one hit.
So the cost of that cutter is, let's say, 4 times more expensive than buying your drill, your countersink, and your reamer. But the cycle time improvement, the lack of manual intervention, the quality of the finished hole, all of these
The number of holes,
number of holes, they far outweigh that 4 times increase in cost. So it's a complete shift in mindset. From 20 years ago, where it was let's buy the cheapest product. Now it's let's choose what our value needs to be. Let's choose what we're chasing, and broaden out that objective and find a partner to work with. That's why it's so important to be that strategic partner, not just a product supplier. That's not what we are. We're not the B&Q. You can't buy our products off the shelf and expect to be an expert in it. Our customers are experts in what they're experts in. So it requires that partnership. That's how we move fast in this world, isn't it? It's taking lots of experts and bringing them together in the same room.
Yeah, well, look at COVID. Look what happened there. You put all those experts in a room trying to come up with and it happens. But I mean, I found it really interesting what you're saying. I did wonder how this would go, talking about drill heads and drill bits and cutting tools, and it's like, and yet it's such a massive, it's just a small part of a massive machine, isn't it? And if you look back to the dawn of man, when he first created those first cutting tools and what that did for him, the axe, the knife, all those sort of things, and it was so important within mankind and humankind, and here we are, hundreds of thousands of years down the line, still progressing it. So it's really interesting.
And engineering is in everything we do. I remember being at university, I did aerospace engineering, and I remember one of my lecturers telling us that the industry that takes on the most engineering graduates is, of course, engineering. The second biggest industry for engineering graduate intake is banking.
Really?
And I'm not the best hands-on engineer. I've got soft keyboard hands, and I'm okay with that. But the reality is we're solving problems. What is an engineer if not solving a problem, whether it's a banking problem, a numbers problem, a cutting tool problem, that the conscious act of wanting to be better, wanting to innovate, if that isn't engineering, then I don't know what is. This concept that this is the way we've always done it is nowhere more rife than in old engineering businesses that have been around for 150 years or whatever. It's nonsense. You're not engineering. You're a passenger on this journey. You're not driving the engineering. So when we're looking for young talent to come in, that desire to want to learn is always there. How they're going to go about learning that, if they haven't got an answer for that straight away, you can see that they're probably not going to be the problem solvers of tomorrow. You can break this away from engineering and test this in a multitude of different ways. Do you cook? Are you any good at it? No. How do you go about making a nice meal then? How do you make it better? There's so many different ways to interrogate the problem-solving aptitude or the problem-solving attitude of somebody. And then marrying that with the commercial aspect of that as well, to know that is too much of a risk and the reward isn't there, or how to apply that youthful problem-solving drive with the experience of, hang on a second, this is going to go down the wrong way, but try again, keep going, keep encouraging. What a place. I don't know if we've got it right. I don't know if we'll ever get it right, but there's certainly really exciting pockets. Some of the younger people coming through the industry are just incredible. You can tell that when they have the experience to match, wow, it's fantastic. Talking about the wider scale here, engineering, manufacturing, I hate when we talk about manufacturing is dead in the UK. It's nonsense. We're the 8th biggest manufacturer on an export scale. We're the 8th biggest manufacturer in the world. We're a bigger manufacturer per GDP than France. This is incredible. We still have so much to offer on a global scale as well. Our innovation, our pace, we're leading the way. Fine, we might not be as productive as China in terms of the mass parts. Do we want to be? No, we're innovating. We're creating the future. It's exciting.
I mean, it's clear to see that you're both so passionate about what you do, and and you're so eloquent the way you talk about your business and your product. I mean, if I was in the market for some cutting tools, I wouldn't hesitate to come and talk to you guys. I really would. And it's nice to see that you're so passionate.
We have got a solution for your toilet holder, so we can come and sort that in your kitchen. You get in your toilet.
I'll talk to you about it afterwards then. Well, thanks ever so much, guys. I really enjoyed that, and hopefully we'll put something together that people are going to enjoy listening to. I'm sure they will. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Cheers, Terry.